The first real clue appears in a place Chin Hao never expected to revisit. His grandfather's old study. It has remained sealed for years, untouched since the night his grandfather vanished without explanation. No body was found, no struggle was recorded. To the outside world, it was simply an unresolved disappearance, an old man who stepped out and never returned. To Chin Hao, it was an unanswered equation. When he finally breaks the seal on the door, the air inside is unnaturally still. Dust lies thick, but not chaotic. Everything is preserved in deliberate order, as if someone intended to return. On the desk sits a compass, not an ordinary feng shui compass, but a modified luo pan. Its rings etched with unfamiliar markings. The needle does not point north, it spins slowly, continuously, reacting not to direction, but to people. When Chin Hao steps closer, the needle locks onto him. The dog eye aches. This object was calibrated for him long before he understood what he was, hidden. Beneath the floorboards, he finds records, maps marked with red threads, names written and crossed out, dates that correspond to disasters, disappearances, and sudden rises of powerful families. The pattern is unmistakable. Someone has been adjusting fate at scale, not through open rituals or mass sacrifice, but through micro-interventions, marriages, property placements, illnesses, accidents, and spiritual inheritances. The Jiang family was not an exception, it was a test subject. And at the center of multiple converging lines appears a recurring symbol, the azure dragon. Not as a myth, but as a system, a method of borrowing fortune from future generations and compressing it into the present. Families who used it rose quickly, then collapsed spectacularly. Every collapse fed something unseen beneath the surface. Chin Hao understands now why his grandfather vanished. He didn't lose, he withdrew, because someone powerful enough had noticed him. Chin Hao is no longer alone on the board. He feels it when he moves, subtle resistance, like walking against a current that wasn't there before. Certain places reject him. Certain people avoid his gaze without knowing why. The world has begun to react. They are watching, not spirits, not demons, but cultivators, groups that do not announce themselves, do not build temples, and do not seek followers. They exist to manage anomalies, people and events that threaten long-term balance. To them, Chin Hao is a problem, a man who died but did not leave, a bearer of an artifact that should no longer exist, a variable outside acceptable probability. The dog eye shows him glimpses he cannot yet interpret, meetings held in sealed spaces, talismans that erase presence, names that vanish from memory the moment they are spoken. This is not war, it is positioning, and positioning always precedes harvest. Chin Hao makes a choice. He stops reacting, he begins preparing. He studies the Azure Dragon system, not to use it, but to understand its failure points. He traces the flow of borrowed fortune, identifying where it must be returned or consumed. He learns the signs of families already marked for collapse. And he does something unexpected. He leaves evidence. Not enough to expose the entire structure, but enough to suggest that someone else sees the board clearly. Someone who can interfere, not recklessly, but precisely. The observers take notice. The balance shifts. Somewhere far away, a decision is made. Chin Hao is no longer to be ignored. He is to be tested. Because the convergence is approaching, a moment when accumulated fate, stolen fortune, and unresolved deaths will collide. When what was borrowed must be repaid. And when that moment comes, Chin Hao will be standing exactly where the lines intersect. Not as a savior, not as a destroyer, but as the one who remembers what should never have been forgotten. Chin Hao senses him before he sees him, not through the dog eye alone, but through a knee, absence, an empty pocket in the flow of the world, like a knot tied too tightly in a living thread. The sensation appears at a crossroads on the outskirts of the city, where old neighborhoods meet unfinished construction, a place neither alive nor abandoned. Someone has chosen this location deliberately. The man stands beneath a street light that flickers without reason. He is unremarkable in appearance, middle-aged, clean-cut, dressed like an office worker who might vanish into a crowd without leaving an impression, and yet the space around him refuses to settle. Chin Hao stops walking. "So," the man says calmly, "you really exist." There is no hostility in his voice, only confirmation. He introduces himself as Wei Shiming, not a threat, not a warning, but a correction. A cultivator who chose efficiency over reverence, structure over mystery. He speaks openly, as though secrecy has already failed. Wei Shiming explains that he belongs to a collective that monitors individuals who disrupt long-term causal balance. Their role is not moral judgment, but maintenance. Fate, to them, is an infrastructure. "You are a fault," Wei says, "not evil, just unsound." The dog eye sharpens Chin Hao's perception. He sees the faint outline of seals woven into Wei's body. Not tattoos, but embedded formulas etched through years of controlled modification. This man did not inherit power. He engineered it. Wei does not attack. Instead, he offers an equation. If Chin Hao submits to evaluation, his anomaly will be contained, studied, possibly redirected. If he resists, he will be classified as an escalating variable and treated accordingly. This is not a duel yet. It is a boundary test. Chin Hao declines. Not defiantly, not emotionally, simply. Wei sighs. Then we proceed. The attack is subtle. No thunder, no chanting, no dramatic release of force. The street grows quiet as Wei Shiming activates his method. The ground beneath Chin Hao's feet stiffens, not physically but conceptually. The idea of movement is suppressed. This is not binding, it is denial. Wei has learned how to apply restrictions directly to probability. Chin Hao feels his body respond half a second too late. His breathing lags, even thought itself seems to hesitate. This is human cultivation, refined to its most dangerous form. The dog eye flares. Where Wei manipulates likelihood, Chin Hao sees structure. He identifies the anchor points, moments of decision, tiny hinges where fate still allows variance. He moves through them, not faster, but earlier, stepping where motion is still permitted. Their clash never escalates into visible destruction. To an observer, it would look like two men standing several meters apart, exchanging nothing more than words and stillness. Internally, the pressure is immense. Wei adjusts his calculations, layering constraints, compressing options. Chin Hao counters, not by overpowering them, but by refusing to accept their premise. He grounds, himself in physicality, breath, stance, the peachwood sword resting in his palm as a stabilizer rather than a weapon. Then Chin Hao speaks. "You think fate is a system because you've never seen where it breaks." The dog eye opens fully. For a moment, just one, Wei Shiming is exposed to something beyond his model. The echo of death that did not complete, the inheritance that crossed species and law, the karmic scar left by interruption. His equations falter. Chin Hao does not strike. He steps forward and places a talisman on the ground between them, not as an attack, but as a marker. "This is where you stop," Chin Hao says, "not because you're weaker, but because you don't belong past this point." Wei retreats, not in defeat, but in reassessment. As he fades back into the ordinary flow of the city, his final words linger. "There will be others, some less patient than me." Chin Hao remains at the crossroads long after Wei is gone. This was not a victory, it was an introduction. He now knows that the greatest danger ahead will not come from ghosts, demons, or broken houses, but from humans who believe they have perfected fate itself. And the next encounter will not end in restraint. The escalation does not arrive as an attack. It arrives as coordination. Within 3 days of Wei Ximing's withdrawal, anomalies begin appearing along Chin Hao's path. Small, precise disruptions that would go unnoticed by anyone else. A bus reroutes itself seconds before he boards. A hotel loses his reservation without explanation. Street cameras glitch when he passes beneath them. None of this is hostile. It is containment. The observers have shifted from evaluation to influence. They are testing how far Chin Hao can be displaced without direct confrontation. If he adjusts, they adjust. If he resists, they record. Chin Hao understands the message clearly. You are no longer acting alone. That night, the dog eye shows him something new. Not a vision, but a resonance, multiple focal points lighting up across the city, connected by thin, invisible lines. Each point corresponds to a person, not a place. Cultivators, operators, assets. This is a net, and it is tightening. Chin Hao realizes then that neutrality is no longer an option. As long as he moves independently, every action will be interpreted as instability. The observers are not trying to destroy him. They are trying to force alignment. He returns to the old study once more. The modified Luo pan spins violently now, its needle jittering between multiple bearings. The red thread maps shift subtly, as if responding to something approaching from outside the system. The convergence is accelerating, and he is already at its center. The confrontation comes at dawn, in a place chosen for symbolic clarity. An abandoned civic hall, once used for public assemblies, now stripped of furniture, its walls bare and echoing. This was once a space of collective decision. It is not empty. 3 figures wait inside, not hidden, not disguised. They introduce themselves without names. They represent a faction within the observers who believe that intervention must become correction, that anomalies should not be studied indefinitely. They should be resolved permanently. They offer Chin Hao a choice: align with them, accept oversight, and become an operative within the system. His actions will be sanctioned, his existence justified through function. In return, the pressure will ease, the net will loosen, or refuse. If he refuses, he will be designated a destabilizing force, a threat. Neutrality is not listed. Chin Hao listens without interruption. Then he asks a single question. "What happened to my grandfather?" The silence that follows is answer enough. One of them admits it, not casually but without apology. His grandfather was given the same choice. He refused. Containment failed. Removal followed. Not murder, correction. Something in Chin Hao settles. He has spent his entire life walking the line, refusing to save when saving would cost too much, intervening only where the heavens permitted. He believed restraint would protect balance, but balance, he now understands, is also a weapon. He declines. The response is immediate. The hall seals. The air thickens as multiple suppression layers activate, targeting movement, breath, intent. This is not a duel, it is an execution protocol. Chin Hao does not draw the peachwood sword. Instead, he presses his palm against the floor. The dog eye opens beyond restraint. For the first time, he does not merely observe fate, he disrupts it. A shockwave ripples outward, not destructive, but declarative. The suppression fractures. One of the observers staggers, blood spilling from his nose as his internal seals overload. Chin Hao stands. "I won't be corrected," he says, "and I won't be used." He does not pursue them as they retreat, because this moment has already decided everything. From this point forward, Chin Hao is no longer an anomaly under review. He is an opposition, not a faction, not a leader, but a line that cannot be crossed without consequence. And somewhere, deep within the machinery that governs fate, alarms are ringing. The observers do not announce their division, they deny it. Officially, nothing has changed. Protocols remain intact. Monitoring continues. Reports are filed, reviewed, archived. On the surface, the system holds. Beneath it, trust is breaking. Chin Hao feels the difference first through absence. The pressure that once followed him everywhere, the subtle resistance in crowds, the constant recalibration of probability, loosens. Not entirely, but unevenly, as if different hands are pulling in different directions. Someone has stopped cooperating. The dog eye reveals discontinuities, surveillance nodes that fail to synchronize, cultivators whose presence flickers in and out of alignment. These are not errors, they are refusals. Within the observers, a fault line has formed. One faction believes Chin Hao must be neutralized quickly, before his disruption spreads. The other believes the greater danger lies not in him, but in the system that tried to erase him and failed. Chin Hao does not celebrate this. A divided enemy is more dangerous than a unified one. The approach comes quietly. No sealed hall, no formal ultimatum. Just a woman sitting across from Chin Hao in a tea house he has never visited before. She looks young, too young considering the weight of her presence, but the dog eye shows layers beneath her surface. Not enhancements like Wei Shiming's, but restraints. Limits imposed deliberately. She introduces herself as Yan Luo, not her real name. "Think of me," she says calmly, "as someone who voted against killing your grandfather." The statement lands without drama. Chin Hao does not respond immediately. Yan Luo continues. She explains that the observers were never meant to become arbiters of permanence. Their mandate was correction of extremes, not enforcement of stagnation. Over time, efficiency replaced humility. Balance became doctrine. Doctrine hardened into law. And laws, she says, eventually require bodies. Her faction believes the system has crossed its own threshold, that the repeated use of correction has created a feedback loop, each removal generating new anomalies, each anomaly justifying further removal. Chin Hao is not the cause, he is evidence. Yan Luo does not ask for loyalty. She does not offer protection. What she offers instead is access, fragments of sealed records, abandoned methodologies, knowledge that never made it into official circulation. Including this, the Azure Dragon system is incomplete. It was never designed to sustain long-term extraction of fortune. Its collapse cycles were supposed to trigger natural dissolution. Someone altered it, closed the loop, allowing harvested fate to accumulate rather than disperse. That someone still operates within the observers, and they are afraid. Yanluo's faction wants Qin Hao to remain independent, but informed, to act when necessary, not as a weapon, but as a counterweight, a variable the system cannot fully predict. "You don't need to choose us," she says, standing. "Just don't choose them." Before leaving, she places a small object on the table, a broken seal, its markings partially erased. "This belonged to your grandfather," she adds. "He broke it himself." When she is gone, the tea house returns to normal. Conversations resume. Cups clink. No one notices the shift that has just occurred. Qin Hao closes his hand around the seal. For the first time, the path ahead branches not into avoidance or resistance, but alliance. Not with a side, but with a fracture. And in systems built on control, fractures are where collapse begins.